Good day to everyone. For this discussion and lecture, we're going to discuss one of the final topics for your biochemistry in nursing, which is molecular biology. Particularly, we're going to talk about the last macromolecule, which is your nucleic acids. So, before we dive deeper onto our discussion, let us first define what is molecular biology. Basically, during the introduction to biochemistry in prelims, we have discussed that biochemistry is an all encompassing field. It means that it touches different disciplines in biology, in chemistry, applied sciences, and other sciences, in which, particularly in your nucleic acids, we're going to deal with your molecular biology. Therefore, when we say molecular biology, we basically define it now as a branch of biology that deals with the structure, the function, and manipulation, or we can also call it as your mechanism of macromolecules, which is essential to life. So we're pertaining to your proteins and also to your nucleic acids and other biomolecules. Aside from that, when we study molecular biology, we basically deal at the nature of life or of biological phenomena at a molecular level. That's why, sabi nga dito, from the name itself, it's molecular biology. Therefore, we study it at a molecular level through now the study of your DNA, RNA, proteins, and other macromolecules, which is involved now in genetic information and cell function. So that is your molecular biology. Now, let's first lay down the different learning outcomes or your learning objectives for this lecture. First is we're going to study the chemistry of nucleic acid. It means that we're going to discuss about your DNA, your RNA, particularly or specifically the components of nucleotides and so on and so forth. At the same time, we have to discuss in detail the process of protein biosynthesis, also to discuss the details of pyrimidine and purine synthesis and its catabolism, and also to discuss and describe the DNA organization, replication, repair, RNA synthesis, processing, and modification. So let's first study the chemistry of your nucleic acids. When we talk about your nucleic acids, guys, the monomer unit of your nucleic acids is our nucleotides. So it's important, therefore, that we look into the chemistry and the metabolism, and at the same time, the composition of your nucleotides. Of course, our nucleotides, its most prominent, maybe, or most dramatic role is to become precursors of nucleic acids. Precursors of nucleic acids, such as we have your deoxyribonucleic acids or our DNA and our ribonucleic acids or RNA. But it is noteworthy to mention that your nucleotides now actually have variety of roles in cellular metabolism. One of its role now is your nucleotides actually play in acting now as the basis of source for sources of energy. Once again, the first role nucleotides play is acting as the basis for sources of energy. What do we mean by sources of energy or energy itself? Of course, we're talking about the energy currency of our cell. We have your ATP or your adenosine triphosphate. We also have your GTP, your guanosine triphosphate. And these types of energy molecules are actually discussed during your midterms when we have discovered and lectured on the different metabolic pathways or intermediary metabolism, in which one is your glycolysis. If you try to remember in glycolysis, basically that's the breakdown of glucose into its desirable product, which is pyruvate. We actually have two phases. Hindi po ba? In which, in those two phases, in those 10 steps or 10 reactions that happens in your glycolysis, there are certain reactions in which it is energy yielding. When we say energy yielding, there is either production of your ATP, or if not, there is also a reduction of your ATP to ATP. So that is one of the roles of your nucleotides. Again, it plays or it acts now as a basis for sources of energy, in which we have your ATP, your GTP that drive biochemical reactions. Aside from this role, of course, your nucleotides is also an essential chemical links in the response of cells to hormones and other extracellular stimuli. So in simpler terms, it means that your nucleotides as essential chemical links now is also important in the balance or what we call now as homeostasis. Isn't it that when we say homeostasis, your body is in a state of balance? But when there is, for example, releasing of hormones, an essential example or a classical example, I should say, for your hormones is your erythropoietin. If you try to go back into your anatomy and physiology with pathophysiology, your erythropoietin is actually a hormone now that will induce the bone marrow to produce blood cells. So this is an example of hormones. Other than that, we also have other extracellular stimuli. So again, your nucleotides can serve as essential chemical links in response of cells to hormones and other extracellular stimuli. Aside from that, it can also serve or it can be a structural component now of array of or of an array of different enzyme cofactors and metabolic intermediates. So again, it can serve as a structural components of enzyme cofactors and other metabolic intermediates. And of course, once again, its most famous or its most dramatic role is of course to serve as precursors or to serve now as um, constituents of nucleic acids, in which we have your DNA and RNA. And kindly take note that your DNA and RNA now are considered the molecular repositories of genetic information. Once again, when we talk about your DNA and RNA, they are the molecular repositories of genetic information. So those are the various roles of your nucleotides besides being a precursor or being a constituent of your nucleic acids. Next up is we're going to discuss about the composition of your nucleotides. Your nucleotides now has three characteristic components. One is your nitrogenous base, or sometimes we can call it as your nitrogen containing base, in which we have two types of bases. We have your purine, which is more complex, and your pyrimidine, which is simpler as compared to the structure of your purine ring or your purine base. We will further discuss such comparisons later. Aside from your nitrogenous base, we also have your pentose sugar. Isn't it? In your lecture in carbohydrates, we have encountered what we call now as your ribose, or specifically your D-ribose, and also your D2-deoxyribose. They are also essential components now of your nucleotides. And lastly is we have the presence of one or more phosphates or your phosphoric acid, which is now esterified or bonded into the pentose sugar. So this is now the three main components, three characteristic components of your nucleotides. Namely, we have your nitrogenous base, we also have your pentose sugar, and we have your phosphate groups. So At some point in this lecture, we're going to encounter another term, which is your nucleosides. We talk about your nucleosides, it's different from nucleotides, in which your nucleosides now are molecules without a phosphate group. So it's as simple as your nucleotides is base plus your sugar. So there is no presence of phosphate group, or simply your phosphate group is not esterified to the sugar. So we simply call it as your nucleoside. Next is, let's now focus on your different nitrogenous base. So your nucleotides now are built from molecules which we call as nitrogenous base. And nitrogenous base now are derivatives of two parent compounds, in which we have your pyrimidine and your purine. Please take note, guys, that in the context of molecular biology, base is different from the base of pH topic. It means that the word base here in our lecture does not refer to an alkaline compound, such as, for example, we have your sodium hydroxide. Rather, your nitrogenous base or your base refers now to one or two ring nitrogenous aromatic compound. So, as mentioned here, we have first your pyrimidine base. Please take note that your pyrimidine base are the single ring aromatic compounds. As I have been reiterating a while back, we have been mentioning that your pyrimidine is much simpler because basically on its structure, it is a single ring aromatic compounds. And there are three pyrimidine bases. In both your DNA and RNA, one of the pyrimidines is your cytosine, or we can abbreviate it as simple as its first letter, letter C. But the second pyrimidine is not the same in both your DNA and RNA. So we have here your thymine, which is exclusively found now in your DNA, and your uracil, which is exclusively found in your RNA. So please take note again that in DNA, thymine, I should say in RNA, thymine is substituted for uracil. Thymine is also found to a small extent in some forms of RNA, particularly your tRNA, but we will discuss more of that later on the trace amounts of thymine in your transfer RNA or your tRNA. Once again, those are the three pyrimidine bases. So let's first have your cytosine. Your cytosine now is chemically called as your 2-deoxy-4-aminopyrimidine, or it can exist now in two forms. We have your lactam or lactim forms. When we say lactam form of cytosine, it can also be known as your keto form. Again, it can also be known as your keto form. On the other hand, when we say lactim form of cytosine, it can also be called now as your enol form. Now, on the keto form or lactam form of your cytosine, the nitrogen atom forms a bond, I should say bond, with the carbonyl carbon atom. Once again, your nitrogen atoms in the structure will now bond with the carbonyl carbon atom, which results now into its cyclic amide structure. Or some classmates of yours would say that it looks like the potato chip or the piatos chips. Once again, your lactam form is your keto form as well, and the nitrogen atom forms a bond with your carbonyl carbon atom, which results now into your cyclic amide structure. On the other hand, when we're talking about your lactim form or your enol form, The nitrogen atoms now bond or forms a double bond. As we can see here, it forms a double bond with the adjacent carbon atom. And with this double bond with adjacent carbon atom, it now creates a cyclic structure with a double bond with your carbon and your nitrogen. Again, when we talk about your lactim form or your enol form, the nitrogen atoms now forms a double bond with the adjacent carbon atom, creating now a cyclic structure with a double bond between your carbon and your nitrogen. So that is for your cytosine. Kindly take note as well that the molecular formula or the chemical formula for your cytosine is C4H5N3O. Once again, the chemical formula for cytosine is C4H5N3O. Next, among your pyrimidine base, which is exclusively found now on your DNA, we have your thymine. Your thymine is chemically named now as your 2,4-deoxy-5 methyl pyrimidine. And at the same time, kindly take note that thymine is a pyrimidine nucleobase with a chemical formula or molecular formula of C5H6N2O2. Again, it has a molecular formula or a chemical formula of C5H6N2O2. And as we have been reiterating, it is found exclusively in DNA, while of course, in the case of your uracil, it is found in your RNA. And as we have been mentioning a while back, there are trace amounts or minute or minor amounts that have recently been found in your transfer RNA. Isn't it that we have just mentioned that uracil is the pyrimidine base that can be found on your RNA? However, there are certain studies in which they have seen minor amounts of your tRNA. Why is that? So your transfer RNA now, they typically contains uracil in the place of thymine. However, there are now certain organisms where they underwent modifications or basically their the certain organisms were have or contain modified nucleotides which resemble now your thymine, which is found on your transfer RNA. And these modified nucleotides are derivatives of uracil still. Again, these modified nucleotides are derivatives of uracil with thymine-like properties. Therefore, the minor amounts or minute or trace amounts of thymine that can be seen on your transfer RNA are still considered uracil. It's just that because these nucleotides underwent modifications, there are there are presence of thymine-like properties in which through chemical analysis they can be identified as your thymine. Okay, next up we have your last for your pyrimidine base is we have your uracil. Your uracil now is chemically named as your 2,4-dioxypyrimidine. Again, it's named as your 2,4-dioxypyrimidine. The chemical formula or the molecular formula of uracil is C4H4N2O2. Once again, the chemical formula is C4H4N2O2. Kindly take note that in RNA, your uracil replaces now your thymine which is found in your DNA. So if we try to go back to your central dogma, specifically your transcription process, we know that through your RNA polymerase. Your RNA polymerase now will synthesize RNA by using uracil instead of your thymine. So aside from knowing that your uracil is exclusively found in your RNA, it is noteworthy to mention that your RNA now actually plays essential role in various biological processes, including of course what we have just mentioned, which is your protein synthesis. Aside from protein synthesis, please take note that it can also be seen in your RNA processing and also in gene regulation. Aside from that, your uracil is also involved in certain metabolic pathways and signaling processes within cells. So again, that is your uracil, or we can call it as your 2,4-dioxypyrimidine. And as we can see, it also have its lactam form and its lactim form. Now let's go to your purine bases. We have been saying a while back that your purine bases is more complex than your pyrimidine ring or your pyrimidine base. It can be considered now the product of the fusion of a pyrimidine ring with an imidazole ring. So again, there are 2 points of differentiation why we have been saying, or why we say that your purine bases or your purine rings are considered as more complex. Number one, as we can see on its string structure, it has been written on your PowerPoint presentations that your purine now, or as we can see here in the picture of your purine nucleus, your purine now is actually a product of the fusion. Okay? When we say fusion, there is merging of your pyrimidine ring or your six-membered ring, which is now fused to a five-membered ring, which we call now as your imidazole ring. Again, you can point out the differentiation based on its complexity through your ring structure. Aside from that, we also have to mention the functional groups. So your purine bases, guys, contains more functional groups than pyrimidines. For example, your adenine and guanine, these are, of course, your two purine bases, which is found in your DNA and RNA. They have now an additional functional group, such as we have, please take note, your amine, and carbonyl groups attached to their ring structures. Again, their additional functional groups is we have your amine and your carbonyl groups, which is attached to their ring structure. So guys, overall, basically your purine bases, it's larger in size because of the fusion of the two rings, which is your pyrimidine and your imidazole rings. At the same time, the structure itself is more intricate and it has greater chemical reactivity, which contributes now to its overall complexity as compared to your pyrimidines. Now, let's have your two purine bases. We actually have your adenine and your guanine. So, your adenine now is chemically called as your 6-aminopurine. And please take note again that the chemical formula for your adenine is C5H5N5. Once again, the chemical formula for your adenine is your C5H5N5. Now, your adenine actually forms a complementary base pair with thymine. Ibig sabihin po, its partner during complementary base pairing is your thymine in DNA. On the other hand, in RNA, we have uracil. And this pairing of your adenine with your thymine in DNA or uracil in RNA is through hydrogen bonding. So as we have mentioned earlier on, your adenine now is a component of your important energy carrying molecules such as we have your ATP or your adenosine triphosphates. And these nucleotides play crucial roles in cellular energy metabolism. Therefore, it serves now as a primary source of energy for various cell or cellular processes. Next up is we have your guanine. When we talk about your guanine, we can chemically call it as your 2-amino 6-oxypurine. Again, it's called as your 2-amino 6-oxypurine, and it can also be present into two forms, which is your lactam and your lactim form. So for the chemical formula of your guanine, just add oxygen to the formula. So we have C5H5N5O. So your guanine forms complementary base with or complementary base rather with your cytosine in both your DNA and RNA through again hydrogen bonding. So yung pair po niya, the partner of your guanine is your cytosine. And same like your ATP for adenine, for guanine, the component, it is an essential component of your guanosine triphosphate. And again, your GTP is similar with your ATP. It serves now as a primary source of energy for various cellular processes. Next up is we have your pentose sugar. So we know that during the discussion of carbohydrates, both your D-ribose and D2-deoxyribose are essential components of your nucleotides. And this pentose sugars now actually alongside the phosphate group forms now the backbone of your nucleic acid molecules. So therefore, the alternating arrangement of your pentose sugar and the phosphate group forms now the structural framework of DNA and your RNA. From the name itself, if we're referring to DNA, basically the pentose sugar is we have your D2-deoxyribose. On the other hand, when we're talking about the pentose sugar for your RNA, we have your D-ribose. And lastly, the last component is we have your phosphates. When we talk about your phosphates now, or your phosphate groups, alongside again your pentose sugar, it provides structural stability by forming the backbone. It facilitates now the linkage between the nucleotides. Aside from that, it imparts a negative charge and it serves now as a high energy bond, or it serves as high energy bonds for cellular processes. So that is your pentose sugar or your simply your sugar and your phosphate or your phosphoric acid. Again, your three characteristic components of your nucleotides is we have your phosphate group, your pentose sugar, and the different nitrogenous bases, which can either be your purine ring or purine base or your pyrimidine ring or pyrimidine base. Now, let's go back to nucleosides. As we have mentioned, your nucleotide, or I should say nucleoside now, is a compound that consists of a base and a sugar, which is covalently linked together. So it differs from your nucleotide basically because it lacks now a phosphate group in its structure. So your nucleoside, the base now plus sugar. So the base now will form a glycosidic linkage. Specifically, it will form a beta N glycosidic bond or linkage between the first carbon of the pentose sugar, whether it be your D-ribose or D2-deoxyribose, and also if we're talking about your base, if it's your purine base, it will bind or it will have a beta N glycosidic linkage with your first carbon of pentose sugar and N9 if it's purine and N1 if it's pyrimidine. So kindly take note that when the sugar is D-ribose, the resulting compound now becomes your ribonucleosides. When the sugar is deoxyribose or D2-deoxyribose, the resulting compound now is a deoxyribonucleotide. Kindly take note as well that in the nomenclature or in naming your nucleosides, your deoxynucleosides or your deoxyribonucleosides rather are denoted by adding the prefix D before the nucleoside. An example for this is in your table, we have your thymine plus your deoxyribose. So thymine plus deoxyribose, it becomes your D-thymidine. Basically, because in the prefix, we added your letter D. Aside from that, the carbon atoms of the pentose sugar are denoted using a prime number in order for us to avoid confusion with the carbon atoms of your purine and pyrimidine ring. And lastly, in naming your nucleosides, nucleosides with purine bases have the suffix. Ibig sabihin, pag suffix at the end of the word, we have your sign for your purine. On the case, or in the case, I should say, of your pyrimidine, we have DIN or DINE. So we have here an example in the table when we're talking about your suffix. If it's purine, for example, your guanine plus your ribose, it becomes guanosine. Therefore, the suffix is sin, guanosine. On the other hand, when we're talking about your pyrimidine, for example, in the case of your cytosine, or we have here hypoxanthine, plus your ribose, the answer or the ribonucleosides becomes your inosine. So that's again for the case of purine. For cytosine plus ribose, we have your cytidine. So the suffix for this certain nucleosides is your DINE. Next is, let's talk about the nomenclature or naming for your nucleotides. So, your nucleotides now, when there is a presence of phosphoric acid or when phosphoric acid is esterified to one of the hydroxyl groups of the sugar portion of your nucleoside, it forms now your nucleotide. So, basically, your nucleotide is your base plus sugar plus your phosphate. Most of your nucleosides, guys, or your nucleoside phosphates rather, involved in biological function is your 5' phosphates. So unlike for your nucleosides in which we need to add the prime number to avoid confusion whether it's purine ring or pyrimidine ring, in the case of your nucleotides, since most of your nucleotides are actually 5' or most of the nucleotides of biological function or of essential significance in life is 5 prime, we already omit or we often do not write the prefix prime number or the suffix prime number already. Aside from that, we have the base can combine with either ribose or your deoxyribose, which in turn can be phosphorylated at 3' or 5' positions. So one purine and one pyrimidine derivative are given as examples. So that's it for your nucleotides. Next up is we have to talk about your diphosphates and your triphosphates. When we are talking about your diphosphates, please take note that it contains one high energy bond. And when we're talking about your triphosphates, in the case, for example, of your ATP, we have two high energy bonds. It's also noteworthy to mention that your ATP again is considered as your universal energy currency. Also, the phosphoester linkage may be formed between the 3' and 5' positions of ribose group. Such compounds, therefore, are called as your cyclic nucleotides. Next is let's redefine what is nucleic acids rather. When we're talking about your nucleic acids, the polymerization now of your nucleotides, which we have just discussed, produces now your nucleic acids. And again, these nucleic acids are considered as the precursors of your RNA and your DNA. So if we talk about your RNA, please take note that your RNA are found mainly in your cytoplasm. But also, we're going to discuss later in RNA, it's not just in on your cytoplasm, it can be seen on your nasal granules, in your nucleolus, etc. So again, in your RNA, it's mainly found in your cytoplasm. On the other hand, if we're talking about your DNA, it's found mainly in your nucleolus. Nucleus, I should say. Again, when we're talking about your DNA, it's found mainly in your nucleus of living cells. So this reaction, guys, or this nucleic acids, this reaction involves now the liberation of a water molecule via dehydration of an OH group at C3 prime of one nucleotide and at the phosphate group located at the 6 or C5 prime of the another nucleotides. So again, please take note that if the sugar is ribose, we say that the nucleotide is ribonucleotide. And therefore, the resulting nucleic acid is we have your ribonucleic acid. When the sugar, therefore, contains now or that is contained now in your nucleic acid is your deoxyribose. Therefore, the resulting nucleoside is your DNA. Next is we're going to talk about your DNA. So I'll only highlight the last slides in which we have here histones. Histones now are small family of closely related basic proteins in chromatin. And please take note that histones are usually related or it is found when relation in cell division in which we have your chromosomes. So your histones, which is a small family of closely related basic proteins, plays now a crucial role. Please take note, it plays a crucial role in DNA packaging. We also have the regulation of gene expression and also the overall structure of your chromosomes. Now, let's go to the primary structure of your DNA. From the word itself, when we're talking about the primary structure, we're talking about the linear sequence. So basically, it's your 3 prime to 5 prime. So please take note that your chromosomal DNA now consists of a very long DNA molecules. So approximately the molecular weight is around 1.6 by 106 or 2 by 109. And it is also noteworthy to mention that your DNA is a polymer of about 1,010 deoxyribonucleotides. So it's really long, it's very long. Again, its DNA is a polymer of about 1,010 deoxyribonucleotides. Of course, in the context of DNA, we have the following deoxyribonucleotides. We have your adenine deoxyribonucleotides. We have your thymine deoxyribonucleotides. We have your guanine deoxyribonucleotides. And you also have your cytosine deoxyribonucleotides. Your nucleotide of each of the two helical strands are bound to each other by covalent bonding or by covalent bond. And of course, we have your 3 prime to 5 prime phosphodiester linkage. Pag sinabi po nating 3 prime to 5 prime phosphodiester linkage, please take note that in the primary structure, we're talking about the linear sequence. So therefore, that end of the strand which bears the 5 prime end or basically the free 5 prime phosphate group without now the phosphodiester linkage is actually called as your 5 prime end. Again, the end of the strand which bears a free 5 prime phosphate group without the phosphodiester linkage is called the 5 prime end. On the other hand, the opposite end, again, we're talking about your primary structure, the linear sequence, the opposite end, which is your 3 prime or the free 3 prime hydroxyl or 3 prime phosphate group is called now as your 3 prime end. Again, the opposite end bears a free 3 prime hydroxyl or 3 prime phosphate group, which is called now as your 3 prime end. So that is for your primary structure. Next up is your secondary structure. So when we talk about your DNA now, we are actually talking about, or we always remember on the structure of your DNA, the double helix or the double stranded helix. So, guys, your double helix structure of DNA was actually proposed by James Watson and Francis Crick in 1935 in order for them to describe the molecular architecture of DNA. And the discovery now of the structure of DNA, which is double stranded helix, actually revolutionized biology, and it laid now the foundation for understanding mechanisms of heredity. We have your molecular genetics, and of course, what we're studying right now, which is molecular biology. Therefore, because of their discovery, I should say, because of this, it touched now a flood of research activities, of scientific breakthroughs, which leads now to the great advancements in molecular biology. Now, you may be puzzled or you may be curious, how did they arrive on the conclusion or on this proposition that your DNA is double helix structure? They actually determined it through primarily based on number one, we have your model building, and also number two, we have your X-ray diffraction patterns. Once again, the determination of the secondary structure or the double helix structure of your DNA was primarily based on a model building and X-ray diffraction patterns. So based now on the chemical analysis determined by, please take note of these individuals, we have Rosalind Franklin, and Morris Wilkins. Based on their chemical analysis, they have discovered that the mole, mole percentages of your adenine and your thymine, and of course, your guanine and your cytosine rather, is equal. So yun po on the context of DNA, hindi po ba ang magka-pair is we have your adenine and thymine, and we also have your guanine and your cytosine. So it has been found that the mole percentages of this respective complementary bases is equal with each other. And this principle now is called as your Chargaff's rule. Again, this principle now is considered or is known as your Chargaff's rule, which is named after an Austrian scientist named Erwin Chargaff. Chargaff, Chargaff. Again, that's called Chargaff or Chargaff's rule. And with this, the combination now of your X-ray diffraction, your chemical analysis, led to the conclusion that the two chains of DNA are referred to as your complementary strands. Okay? Once again, with the combination of your X-ray diffraction, your chemical analysis, which was determined by Rosalind Franklin and Morris Wilkins, they have arrived to a conclusion that the two chains of your deoxyribonucleic acids or your DNA are referred now as your complementary strands. Also, please take note that the inside diameter of the sugar phosphate, again, the sugar and the phosphate, diba, they serve as the backbone or for the structural stability of your DNA. Therefore, the sugar phosphate backbone, its inside diameter is approximately 11 angstrom. Again, its inside diameter, the inside diameter of your sugar phosphate backbone is 11 angstrom. When we're talking about angstrom, that's an atom scale measurement. Again, 11 angstrom. That's the inside diameter of the sugar phosphate backbone. Other than that, please take note as well that your strands, your complementary strands now, or your two strands or two chains are anti-parallel. The 3 prime to 5 prime strand is called now as your coding or your template strand. On the other hand, your 5 prime to 3 prime strand is called now as your non-coding or non-coding strand. Once again, 3 to 5 prime or 3 prime to 5 prime, that's your coding or your template strand. Your 5 prime to 3 prime, that's called now as your non-coding template. So next is we're going to talk about your RNA. If we're talking about your RNA, basically that's a polymer now of your ribonucleotides, adenine, guanine, cytosine, and in exchange of your thymine, we have your uracil. So it's joined together by 3 prime to 5 prime phosphodiester bonds. As we have mentioned earlier on, your RNA is actually mainly found on your cytoplasm. But beside your cytoplasm, we also have in nucleolus, in Nissl granules. Nissl granules, we also have your ribosomes, your mitochondria, and of course, mainly in your cytoplasm. And the pentose sugar here is, of course, your the ribose. Now, let's look into the different structures of your RNA. So, if we refer to your primary structure again, your primary structure of RNA refers to the linear sequence of nucleotides. Therefore, each nucleotide consists of a ribose sugar, your phosphate group, and one of the four bases, adenine, guanine, cytosine, and your uracil. Therefore, please take note that your primary structure serves as the foundation of or for the higher order structures and functions of your RNA molecules. So if we pertain to higher order structure, we have your secondary structure, we have your tertiary structure. Again, your primary structure serves as the foundation for the higher order structures and functions of your RNA molecules. Next up is we have your secondary structure. So your secondary structure of your RNA refers now to the local folding, or we have here on the PowerPoint, in which in secondary RNA, it involves now the various coil formation of your polyribonucleotide chain. So there is a local folding of the RNA molecules into variable structures primarily driven by hydrogen bonding. So guys, the different structures or the secondary structure of your RNA in which there is different shapes or unique shapes of the different types of RNA are not for aesthetic purposes. Therefore, the shapes of this or the folding of this secondary structure of RNA actually have a function to it. So what are the different types of your secondary structure folding? We have your stem loop. Again, we have your stem loop structure. Stem loop structure looks like as hairpins. Aside from stem loop structures, we also have bulges. We also have your internal loops and your pseudoknots. So please take note that your secondary structure plays crucial role naman in your RNA function. So if we pertain to your primary, that's the foundation. Your secondary, it's on your RNA function, such as we have your messenger RNA stability, your ribosome binding, and also the regulation of gene expression. So that's it for your secondary structure. Next up is we have your tertiary structure. From the word itself, tertiary, basically your tertiary structure now refers to the overall 3D or the three-dimensional arrangement of your RNA molecule. So as we have mentioned earlier on, your tertiary structure will actually give rise to the different shape of your RNA molecules. And again, this is essential for the specific functions. So for example, we have your one of the primary kinds of your RNAs is we have your transfer RNA or your tRNA. Your tRNA now actually adopt a characteristic L-shaped structure. Why? Because through its L-shaped structure, through this unique shape, this allows now the binding or for it to bind two amino acids and interact with ribosomes during the protein synthesis. Therefore, the tertiary structure is very critical for the biological activity and influence it on its stability and function. Again, it is critical for the biological activity and influence and its stability and function. Next is we're going to talk about the different types of your RNA. So we have basically three types of your RNA. So since this is just a recall or review, we'll just focus on its function. So when we say messenger RNA, basically your mRNA now carries the genetic information from DNA in the cell nucleus to the ribosomes in the cytoplasm. Again, your messenger RNA carries the genetic information or copies the genetic information from the template strand, which is the 3' to 5', as we have mentioned earlier on, of the DNA. And it carries it now to the ribosomes in the cytoplasm, in which, of course, the proteins are synthesized. Therefore, your messenger RNA now serves as your template for protein synthesis. On the other hand, when we're talking about your transfer RNA, we're actually talking about your uh the one or the RNA that is responsible now for bringing the amino acids to the ribosomes during the protein synthesis. Again, it is responsible for bringing amino acids to ribosomes during protein synthesis, and each type of your tRNA molecule is specific to a particular amino acid. So the structure, the shape of a certain tRNA is particular to a specific amino acid. And lastly is we have your ribosomal RNA. Please take note that in your ribosomal RNA or your rRNA, it is now a structural component or as mentioned here or as stated here in your PowerPoint, it is actually a catalytic component of the ribosomes. Of course, your ribosomes now, these are the cellular organelles which is responsible for your protein synthesis. And because of this, it can help catalyze the formation of peptide bonds between the amino acids. Again, it helps to catalyze the formation of peptide bonds between amino acids. So those are the different types of your RNA. So it is expected that after this discussion, or lecture, there will be an assessment or quiz. Please review well. And once again, thank you. This has been your Sir Nicolay Martin, and we will continue with the topics of DNA replication or the transcription, translation, or simply the central dogma through your creative lecture and presentation. Thank you.